Welcome to another episode of the Healing Place podcast. I am your host, Brianna, and I'm excited about today's show. I have a very special guest, someone who is near and dear to me, Tiana. She has joined us on today. Some of you have seen where I have shared some of her posts on my page, Girl Talk Ministry, a ministry that is really helping the young girls out here, something that is much needed, because we have a lot of things, a lot of people who come out with ministries for young girls or young people, and they really don't work it. But I'm excited because Tiana has a heart for God. She has a heart for young women, and I'm excited on today that she has decided to join us. And so I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell us all about her story and her journey on how she got to the place of ministry. So Tiana, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, just thank you for the introduction. Pastor Hedden is literally like God sent, like an angel. She will always be an angel to my life. And I'm so grateful that God led her on my path in my journey to healing. So I'm very grateful for that. And again, thank you for having me on your platform. I just pray that God just continues to just take you to new levels and to new heights as well. So thank you for having me on here.
Thank you.
Let's see. So let me let the people know who I am first. So I'm Tiana Roberts, as she said. I'm from Kings Mountain, North Carolina, which is like 30 minutes outside of Charlotte. I'm 25, and I am a recent graduate from UNC Greensboro. In 2019, I graduated with my Human Development and Family Studies with a concentration in youth, child, and family development. And then straight from there, I went into grad school for the Joint Master Social Work Program with UNCG and North Carolina A&T. And I graduated with a social work degree. So now I am a LCSWA, which is a licensed clinical social work associate. So I am a therapist through a telemedicine practice called Mind and Body Wellness. So that's just a little bit of backstory. And I'll just jump right into it and how I got led to therapy. I think what we were calling this Jesus in Therapy, I think is what we're calling this episode. So let's just get right to it. So in 2020, I had been previously talking to someone who I have known for a long time, and we started getting kind of more serious. It was on my end that I eventually just started giving in. And in 2020, it had probably been about a year at this point that me and him were fooling around. And I eventually ended up finding out that he was talking to my cousin. And from that point, I had already been through previous things with previous guys. And at that point, I was just like, I cannot keep going through this. Like, I feel like I kept going through cycles. So I stopped talking to him. And I felt like, I didn't want to resent my cousin and still have like, I would say I had a soul tie with him, and he was able to like wheel me back in, and I could feel that I would probably have kept talking to him, even though in my heart I didn't want to, but I felt like I probably would have still kept talking to him if I would have kept going with it. So, and I didn't want to have any resentment towards my cousin. So I was just like, I'm just going to dead the whole thing. But leading up to that, like I had been just like trying to strengthen my relationship with God. Well, actually, I think that's what led me. I felt like at that point, God was tugging at my heart. So from that moment, I just started like strengthening my relationship with God, listening to Pastor Sarah's sermons and her and Pastor Teray. And they were really just meeting me like right in the meat of where I was. So from that moment, I actually started back talking to someone that I really didn't like, but I was just like, maybe he's the one for me because he is kind of different from the guys that I used to talk to. So I'm gonna just try to like give him another chance. But really, I knew like he wasn't the one for me. So I was talking to him a little bit, and this was actually God bamboozled me into therapy. I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but so I was talking to him, and I was like, well, maybe he might be the guy for me. I don't know. And one day I was at work and I was listening to Pastor Teray and Pastor Sarah's one of their like how to find out if the person if you're connected to the person you're with. And as I was listening to it, I was like, wow, like I feel like he may be the one for me. And maybe I need to like get into therapy so I'll like won't be bringing in this baggage into the relationship. Yeah, it was God. It was never that. But I do think God used that to lead me to therapy. And I went on therapy for Black girls, and Pastor Hayden literally popped up, one of the first ones actually on the thing that popped up in my area. So from that point, I think it was November, the day before Thanksgiving, actually, that we started in November of 2020. Mm-hmm. And from that moment to like a year, every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, I was on there. Sometimes I'd be on there before she was on there. I'd be ready. And from there, we just hit the ground running, and I'm very grateful. I hate that COVID happened and the things that the way that it took away of the world, but I'm very grateful for it because it allowed me to dig deeper into myself and really get to the root of some things, some cycles that I didn't really realize were taking a hold of me and sabotaging me from like who God is wanting me to become. And as we just continue to go through therapy, I was able to, it was kind of like I was uprooting all of this, all of the cycles and all of like the traumatic stuff that had happened. But in exchange for that, God was putting him inside of me. So it was like, it was an exchange happening. And like, whenever we would get on our sessions and we would talk, you would always say, I want you to go find a scripture that's related to, whatever we had been talking about that day. And so I would get off, I would go find a scripture like that night that would lead over into the next day. And I would literally just start journaling and praying on whatever we had talked about. If I needed to pray about, God helping me uproot some things, I would pray about that. But I'm also praying, God, show me who you are, all of this stuff. And I'll never forget one day in our conversation, you were like, because I feel like I dealt with a lot of trust issues and different things like that from past people I've talked to. And one day you were like, we were talking about trust, and you was like, I want you to, because it was me learning how to trust God, because I think a lot of times we relate God to the people that we encounter in the world when that's really not who God is. So because I've had such issues with trusting people, it was hard for me to trust God. And you were like, I want you to stand beside your bed and fall backwards as if you're falling into the arms of God. And for like maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, it was hard for me to do. But when I did it, I felt like a surrendering happening, just even in the spirit realm. Like I was literally learning how to surrender my mind, my will, and my emotions, my life to God. And from that moment, like, I don't know, it was like I was learning how to be vulnerable, and I've never knew what that looked like. And I remember one of our sessions, I was in the car, I think for this session I was at Walmart, and I was sitting in my car. I don't really remember what we were talking about, and you were like, I had started crying, but I only cried for like maybe like 5 seconds. And you were like, you're literally like a caged bird. You come out just a little bit just to come right back in. And I was like, that is true. And I think for me, it was just like a lot of, my family and how I was raised. We weren't shown what it looks like to be vulnerable. It's a lot of like passive aggressiveness. And if you say something, I'm gonna come back with a defensive response, and never like a space where you can verbally express, how you're feeling and what your emotions are. So we just continue to go through therapy, like I said, and uprooting a lot of stuff and really learning why I was in this space I was and what had like got my thoughts to the way they were. And I don't know, from there, it was December. So we had started in November, at the end of November. By December, I had been in prayer, and at this point, I was journaling my prayers. Like I hadn't got to a point where I was verbally saying my prayers. I was just journaling. So I was journaling my prayers, and one night, it was like over in the morning. Actually, you told me to print it out. It was 1:02 in the morning on December the 29th of 2020. And I was just journaling this prayer, but like I was journaling, but I knew it wasn't me that was talking. Like part of it was, but as I got closer to the bottom, I'm like, it was a lot of like second person talking. Like I was saying like a lot of you, like a lot of second person. And that, when I brung that prayer back to Pastor Hedden, that next time we met, she was like, I don't know. Now as I'm farther in my relationship with God, I understand how she was able to see the vision, but I wasn't able to see the vision. I was just reading to her what it said, and it was like, the girls that, you've been through your traumatic events or whatever, but the girls that you are going to be, your purpose is like girls who have been through emotional all different types of traumatic events. And I'm like, and then when I told her, she was just like, okay, so what it is, you're going to be working with girls. Have you ever, like a nonprofit, all of this stuff? And I'm like, who? So like, I have never seen this done. So like, I don't know nothing about like a nonprofit. I don't even know what that looks like. I don't even know what it looks like to have your own business. Like, because even though it's a nonprofit, it's still a business. So from that point, she was like, I need you to go here. This is what I need you to do. Print out these papers, fill out these paperwork. And I was like, I was fearful. And that's another thing. I have a lot of fear. Well, I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear even in myself, even throughout my years of like school and different things. I can look back and see how I kept myself from experiencing and doing different things because it was a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. So whenever she told me that, I'm like just thinking about like all of the negative things that could happen and not thinking about the positive things. So like so that would happen in December. The next time we talked about it was in February. And you were like, how far have you got on filling out the paperwork? And I was like, I haven't. Like it was literally sitting in my dorm room in like a box. Like I had printed off the papers and everything, but I literally went and set it in a box. And I think for me, at that time, I would let things overwhelm me so much. And I would avoid myself from situations that would cause me to feel very overwhelmed. So I literally, it sat there. And when she asked that second time, like how far had I got, I was like, so I'm really going to have to do this. Like, I'm really going to have to put myself out here because I was a person, and I'm still working on that as well. But I was a person who's very like introverted. Like I would rather be in the background. I don't want to be on the scene. I put my 2 cents in when I have to, but like I really don't want to be on the forefront of anything. So from that moment, in February, I was started to filling out the paperwork for the nonprofit. And I'm still like, God, this isn't real. Like literally just a year ago, I'm still like trying to dig up, everything that's going on. It was like everything was happening so fast. And I'm like, God, I just really learned out having a relationship with you. Like, what you mean you ready for me to go ahead and start a nonprofit? But if you feel like I'm ready, then this is what it's going to be. So as I'm in the midst of filling out the paperwork for the nonprofit to send off to the IRS, I'm also in the midst of like trying to figure out like, okay, what's my next move? Because at this point I'm in Greensboro, I'm about to graduate college. So like, what do I do? Like my heart was like, I want to go to Atlanta, but I knew in reality, like Atlanta wasn't going to be it for the moment. So I prayed about it and God led me back home. And by the time I got home, I moved back home in June, I think, June or July. And by August, we was hitting the ground running with the nonprofit. I think by August, I released it. I think that's what I did. I released it on social media. and I created the brochure and released it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm really about to do this. And then by September, we had the ribbon cutting at my previous church, at my home church. And like the days leading up to it, I was okay. Like, you know, I feel like I had tunnel vision because there was so much stuff that I had to get done, and, you know, contacting different people to see if they can be there. But I think for me, like the night before and the days leading up to it, still in the back of my mind was like, at this point, when we have this ribbon cutting, it's literally no turning back. Like I'm gonna have to go full-fledged when I start, because at this point it's like, if I do it and I stop, what does that look like for me? So it was all of like, you know, what are people gonna think? Like, what's gonna happen? But yeah, I'm also like trusting in God. Like, God, this is what you said. Obviously, you gave Pastor Hedden like the foresight of it, but like I don't know. It was still like, I don't know. It was I'm nervous. I'm scared, but it was, at the end of the day, God, I still trust you, because obviously you already had this planned out. And from there, we had the ribbon cutting in September of 2021. By October, we started our first group. So it went like the first Tuesday of each month was the 5th through 6th grade. The second Tuesday of the month was 7th through 8th grade. The third Tuesday of the month was 9th through 12th grade. And even before then, I was like, where are we going to host it? And like, because I didn't know, I'm not going to host it at my house. Like, where are we going to do this at? And it was just crazy. Like, whatever God has planned, like he's already has the path planned. You already have the favor that you need. And like, when I told my pastor at the time, he was all open for it. He's always been a pastor who had a heart for the youth. So I think even whenever I shared the vision that God had given me, like it really blew his mind as well, because like I said, his heart for the youth was just there. So at that point, it was really all up to me. Like, God had already opened the door, but it was up to me to take that step and walk through it. So when I did, it was like, I don't know, it was like, it was magical. Like, it was like, it still kind of even feels surreal to me, even now, a year later, and just looking to see like how far we have come now. And I think another thing I would say is just like the more I just continue to walk and trust God, like he was bringing the people to me that I needed. Like, it was like, I felt like he was just like, here, now you do what you need to do with it. And even I think with the prom event that we had for our first year on last year, I had a girl reach out to me who I've been known, but I've known of her. And she reached out to me and was like, hey, I have these 20 prom dresses. Do you want them? And I'm like, I don't have no room for no 20 prom dresses. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. And I reached out to one of the schools and was like, I have 20 prom dresses. I can give 5 dresses to each school, because I don't have no space for them. And one of the ladies that I talked to, she was like, well, why don't you just host an event? And I was like, why don't I? Like, that was never even a thought for me, but it was like, God already knew I was going to have that conversation with her. He put that idea in her mind. And just like, to even whenever we had the event and to see it come into fruition, like, we literally went from like 20 prom dresses to over 100 and something prom dresses. And it's just amazing to see like how, if we just trust God and if we just lay our burdens at his feet, and to see what he will give us in exchange for our ashes, he will literally give us beauty, like literally joy, unspeakable joy. And from there, we had group every month. We was having group. Occasionally on the 4th Tuesdays, we would have like a overall group where everybody comes together. And over the summer, we went through a break where they did their own thing, and then we came back this past October, and God kind of shifted a little bit. So we ended up doing Zoom. So now we are holding all of our sessions via Zoom through our platform. And meeting girls not only locally here in North Carolina, but also girls, like we have girls coming in from Alabama, girls coming in from Connecticut, and just to see how like the hand of God has really been on this, and he's bringing the girls who he knows who needs it to the platform. So
I'm really I'm excited because, like you said, when you first came in um to counseling, it was like what where you're at today is like night and day, you know,
yeah,
and a lot of people don't understand that therapy and Jesus is all right, and it really goes hand in hand. And so because you were willing to put in the work, and so you're like the prime example of what happens when you want to when you want it,
yeah,
you're going to do the work. And I want you to maybe tell the people about those times where, because every session isn't an easy session, some sessions are hard.
mhm,
And I remember, you know always, or at certain times, telling you, you need to let them tears out, you need to
yeah.
go ahead and cry. And so and a lot of times people don't like that. So if you can explain to the people what, when it was times like that, what you felt, but when you did release, how it made you feel.
Yeah. Well, first, let me just say, even when I was telling people I was going to therapy, like family and friends and stuff, they was like, "What are you going to therapy for?" And I would just explain, like, it's things that we do that are that we do unconsciously that are not good things. Like the way we handle things, I think sometimes like we live life in such a survival mode that we don't sometimes take that step to realize like what we are doing and how we are acting is a way of reacting and not a way of responding. And I think for me a little bit, I feel like I was self-aware, but I think it's a difference between being self-aware and admitting. So I think I was very self-aware, but my thing was having to admit a lot of things. So through therapy, yeah, I think I was ready for the conversations, but at times I wasn't ready to admit some of the things. Like I knew how things were affecting me and how they were showing up, but having to admit, like, yeah, these things hurt me, and having to create that space to let it show how it hurts. Like having, because I've always been a person, I suppress a lot. I wouldn't, I wouldn't express how something hurt me. And I think it comes from a place of, like I said, upbringing, and also in past people I've talked to. Like if I try to voice how I'm feeling, it's always why are you crying, or it ain't even that serious. So to me, it would have been, it was serious, but because to them it was something that they felt like a lot of gaslighting, I should say. Like it made me have to, it made me as if like my feelings weren't heard or my feelings weren't validated. So coming into therapy where you had that space where like, no, you need to be vulnerable, it was difficult, because it's like, how do I, and I think even for a moment I looked at Pastor Hedden as someone who was judgmental, because that's what I was so used to. And I think we even had to get to a place where you said, like, I'm not in this space to judge you. I'm here for you. And having to even build the trust with the therapist, I think is another like number one thing. Is like, how can I even get to a place where I can be vulnerable if I don't even trust you yet? So I think it was a lot of like you and I building our therapeutic relationship, and then going into a place where I can say, okay, yeah, she really is here for me. Like if I'm going to keep coming here and I'm not being vulnerable, I'm wasting money every week. Like I'm really not even getting out of it what I should be getting out of it. And I even think still, I feel like I maybe even in our sessions, I feel like I can count on one hand maybe how many times I've cried, but I still don't think I had that moment where like I fully like just wept. But I think in my sessions with you, I would weep a little bit, but then when I would get in the presence of God, like that's when it would like wreck me. Like, wow, like I feel like you I feel like whenever I would get in the sessions with you, it's like we were scraping the wound, but then when I would get in the presence of God, the wound would open. So it was a lot of, I think with therapy for me really was just teaching me how to be vulnerable, teaching me how to put words to what it is I was feeling. Like if something was hurting me, how do I say like, yeah, this makes me angry. Yeah, this makes me mad. But having to learn how to put those words with those emotions, I think it was hard for me because and it was like a lot of times the word would be there, but I would need you to say that made you mad. But it was like, but I couldn't articulate to put those words with that feeling. And I think as I went through therapy, it helped me to learn how to identify what emotions connected with what, different feelings and different thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a strong believer that therapy, especially for those who are coming in that are Christians, it helps them to view God in a different way too, because a lot of times they look at Jesus in one way and they feel like they can't be vulnerable. They feel like they shouldn't feel this way. They feel like they can't be sad. They feel like they, can't be depressed, or, I shouldn't feel this, or I shouldn't say this. But that is not who Jesus is. We are able to go to him and be vulnerable and say, this made me mad, or I don't like what you did, Lord. I don't understand why you did this. And when we can open up to him that way and understand that he's going to still love us, he's not going to disregard us, he's going to let us know that our feelings are very valid. We might not like the response we get back,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he's not one who will treat us as though we're minute to him. And when
Yeah.
we can get to that place with him, it makes it a little easier with people, because people are going to always be people. But in order for you to stand up in who you are, you have to be what I've been using and telling people, you have to be assertive and letting people know what it is you want, your needs and your desires. Because without you doing that, people don't know how you feel. People don't know what hurts you, what you feel is disrespectful, unless you're able to verbalize it.
Yeah.
And so I think it just gives people another outlet or another outlook, or way to look at God, and and how he really has care for us, his love that he has for us.
That's so good that you say that, because I feel like we look at God as let's go back on that. We have this society and we have this culture who is, we say, I'm gonna keep it 100 and all of this stuff, but we say that, and we have these different terms and like, what's the point of me? I don't need no friends and different things like that, and how people, hurt each other verbally or whatever the case may be. But even in the Bible, that like even when Elijah felt depressed, and even different people in the Bible went through these different experiences, and even the woman at the well, and how she had all these different men and she felt unseen, she felt unheard. But it's like, how can we go from a society that makes you feel like there's no need to express your feelings, nobody really cares about how you feel, and then to shift and look at God as someone who is there for you, someone who needs you to express how you feel? It's hard. Like, it's hard to go from such a dramatic shift and looking at him as somebody who wants to see you whole, somebody who wants to see you healed, versus society who wants to see you, beat down, who wants to see you hurting. And sometimes that's friends, sometimes that's family. And how do you go to believing in somebody who, one, that you can't even see, when the people that you do see hurt you and abuse you and mistreat you and makes you feel unseen, makes you seen, unheard? Like, it's difficult. But I think just with God, like just his love, his patience, his kindness, and the compassion that he has. And I think sometimes even people are scared to even lean on God, because it's like, I did X, Y, and Z. Like, there's no way he's going to accept me for what I did. My mom won't even accept me for what I did. My dad won't even accept me for what I did, or whatever anybody's circumstance may be. So how can I turn to God when I feel like he's just going to look at me as the way as society looks at me, especially cancel culture, like you and I was talking about the other week? Like, did God cancel me? I don't know. But, I think it's having to get to that place where we learn his love for us. I feel like once we are able to put away religion, away all of these other things, put away church, and really get in the presence of God for the love and learning who we are in him, and who, like, he's a father to us above anything. And once we get to a place where we can learn that, I think it would help us to one, be able to understand people, but also help us understand the love relationship that he has towards us.
Mm-hmm. And it helps you to have compassion for one another, because once you go through therapy, and you go through your healing process, and you go through your place of gaining a more intimate relationship with God, it should change your view on people, your perspective on others, because you understand what you had to go through. And so it makes me look at other people with more compassion for them.
Yeah.
If you could only get what I got, if only you can get to the place where I'm at, then you wouldn't be, or you wouldn't think, and you wouldn't feel the way that you feel, because you will understand that nobody that we encounter is better than the next person. And we have all failed short and disappointed a loving God. We have all gotten to a place where God literally can look and say, you know what, I'm done. But he hasn't. And because he hasn't done that to us, then we really don't have the right to do that one to another. We just really don't. We have to understand that everybody's not where we're at. But when but you got to get to that place. You really have to get to that place in your healing process, in your journey, in your relationship with God, to understand that the cross is for everybody, and
Yeah.
everybody has a journey to get to that cross, and everybody just hasn't gotten there yet.
And
And
I
it's
think
not about you. It's not about me. When people project things off, and that's all it is. People are a lot of times projecting things off on others, because it's something that they're dealing with eternally. And like you said earlier, when you get to a place of being able to self-identify, you are able to get to a place where you really do feel the conviction of God, and you say, you know what I said, I shouldn't have said that. That had nothing to do with you. I apologize. Please forgive me. You're able to do that because you can self-identify that you just did something to offend and to hurt somebody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. And that's so good, because I feel like even when we would have our sessions, I think another thing that always kept me coming back to, because whenever I would leave sessions, it's like now I'm going and telling my friends, like, hey, I gotta block this person, or just talking about like what we talked about, or I learned that the reason I do this is because of this, and like helping, like going to my friends or coming to like those in my family and saying, like, these are some of the things that we talked about. Like, can you believe, like, I do this because of this? And I think for me, it was a lot of like bringing awareness to my family members, like for a lot of things, because we're a product of our environment, and some of the things that we do is because we seen it done as children, and it just developed us to be who we are. So I think another thing for me was like, I was able to bring back some of the things that we talked about, and help my family to see, like, maybe these are some of the areas too that you're experiencing, that you're just unconsciously aware of, and how we handle things, and being able to even, I feel like I was showing up for therapy, but not only was I showing up for me, I was showing up for my family. That's what I feel like.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Because I believe that there are so many people that are walking around that are really Josephs of their family, and they just don't realize it. And God is pricking their heart to do the things that they need to do in order for their families to really get what they really need. Because I believe now, and you tell me, do you feel like since you went through therapy that you and your family are closer than what you were? Or you
Yeah, well, we were close, but I think it's helped me. I will say, yeah, maybe it's gotten a little bit closer, but I would say for me as an individual to be more in tune with them individually, I think, because like you said, like it helps you dig up roots, and it helps you at the same time. I was learning the love of God. So it's like showing me how to show up and be loved, showing me how to show up and be patient, showing me how to show up and be understanding, because, you know, I think when we grow up as kids, you think people are automatically have been adults their whole lives, and that's not really the case. And you have people who are ahead of you in life, but not knowing they've been through things as well. They, we say that they're this and they're that, but we don't really know the root. So now I think where I'm at, I'm able to see the roots in people and learning how to accept them for who they are and be the love that they may need. So yeah, I would say it. Our family has gotten closer, and it's helped me to, which we were already close. We're a really tight knit family, but it's helped me to show up and be the love that they may need, even when they don't even know they may need it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's really good, because sometimes it's hard. It's hard to experience certain things. And like you said, we haven't always been adults. And so bringing into relationships, whether it's with our parentals or with our siblings or with our extended family, the things that we kind of adapted to in our learning,
Mhm.
growing up in our environment, it can be hard when somebody says or do something to us, says something or does something to us that's offensive, and we feel like we don't have the space to be able to tell them, hey, this what you
Yeah.
did, I don't like it. And then having that conversation of where, maybe you saw it wrong, or,
Mhm.
or I apologize, I didn't know. Things like that within a family structure can really be hard. It's almost easier to do it with friends than it is to do with family.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
when you get to that place of, you know what, I love you, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna have this loving conversation with you, and because I love you, and I
Mhm.
believe that, God is gonna be in the midst of us, and it's gonna
Yeah.
work out just fine. Versus before, um, I know that sometimes going to families and you don't put God in it, and you don't believe that God is going, you just, I'm angry, and we're gonna have this
Yeah.
conversation. And it doesn't turn out the same way
Mhm.
versus when you do it the way you should do it.
Right.
So I believe that brings families closer. I've have experienced different clients who have come to me who have come back and said that, oh gosh, I was not going to have that conversation until after we discussed it. And after they did, they realized um, it turned out better than
Yeah.
what it would have if, they would have went in with anger or animosity and things of that.
Mhm.
So what I want us to talk about more is your journey to with the ministry, Girl Talk Ministry, because when you began with the paperwork, the nonprofit, and we were talking back and forth, and some of the things that God was revealing within the sessions, I was really excited because it made me think about, gosh, you're getting ready to be worldwide, or nationwide, worldwide. And at that time, it was like, really? Really? But now that you're virtual with your sessions, it's literally, you got girls from all over.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't know. I'm still like, it still feels surreal to me. And I don't know, like it was like every time, that's why I always say like you are literally God sent, because it was like I would come to you and say, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I feel like it should be the next move. And after I've talked to God, it was like sometimes I would come and you would, like, maybe everything would still kind of be blurry to me, but you would come and just bring like the clarity that I needed and show me the direction that I needed to go on. And I think that's another thing, like having somebody, because sometimes I still don't know how to address you. I tell people, I said, she's my therapist, my mentor. I don't know what she is. She just got sent. I don't know. But yeah, you just would literally give me the clarity that I needed as God just continued to download things in my spirit. And it's like whenever we would have our conversations, like God would just show me, okay, now do this, now do that. Even with like whenever we were preparing to go into our second year to go on Zoom, I remember you called me and you were like, I have somebody who I know would be good to join. And I was like, okay, but if she's all the way where she's at and I'm here, how was she going to be able to tune in? And at that point, that's when like we were transferring, you were like, I think Zoom may be a good idea. And even at that, I was like, I don't know. And that's still a part of me who sometimes can be a very doubtful person and having to admit that. And I was just, like, I don't know. Like, I still want it to be like a trusting environment for them. And, I think I was thinking negative about like how Zoom could be an option. But it was like once we talked again and we explored it more, and you were like, I think for me, it's sometimes I need that reassurance. You were like, but you said you want to be global. Like, if you want to do this, then, this seems like a window that you need to take. And I was like, well, yeah, you're right. You're right, because that's true. And it was like literally after that conversation, beknownst to me, my mom ended up texting me and saying, do you need like what do you call these things? One of the mirror things, not the mirror, but the stick, the light thing.
Selfie ring.
Yeah, ring light. And it was like everything was literally, I had my session with you. My mom ended up texting me maybe like 30 minutes after that, asking me, do I need a ring light? And I'm just like, everything is literally unfolding. And I feel like every time we was having our sessions or we would be talking about things related to the ministry, things were just unfolding right before me. And it was like, I think it would have been a fool for me to not keep going when God was literally just handing me everything that I needed. It was like, here, this is what you need. And it was like sometimes God would know what I needed before I even knew what I needed. Like, it was another lady who has came and been a part of my life since I started the ministry. And, hearing her sound voice and the advice that she gives me, or just advice from different people, it was kind of like I would be a fool to not keep going, because God is literally handing me everything that I needed. So, and I think that's another thing, like God will give us the grace to do the things that we need to do, because ain't nobody in my family ever had no nonprofit. So it's kind of like, God, you ain't got no choice but to give me, and I'm not saying that to sound arrogant, but it's kind of like, God, you're going to have to, order my steps and bring the people along that I need, because I've never done this before. Like, I'm grateful that I can have, my family behind me to support me and help me execute the vision on the different things that we're doing. But it's kind of like, when it comes down like to the back end of things, to the pen and paper, you're gonna have to show up, because I don't know. And I think that's another thing that I love about God, is as long as we surrender and submit to him, like, the people that you need gonna come, the doors that you need gonna open. And I think another thing for me is like being able to release control. I think I was a person who always tried to be so in control of my life. And I think that's where a lot of my anxiety used to come from. And I even remember when I signed up for therapy, I put in my description, like, I felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. Like, my heartbeat wouldn't always be, it would sometimes be abnormal. But the more and more that I just kept surrendering, like, that anxiety lifted, because I went from a place where, okay, I'm trying to make sure I'm making the right steps to go to my next move after this, after that. But now when I'm looking at God and he telling me, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. Like, the plans that I have for you are to prosper you and not to harm you. So it's kind of like, okay, so if my destiny is already written, then I don't need to do nothing. I just need to be obedient and walk into the paths that you have for me. So I think for me now, it's like, God, you just do what you do, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to take the steps and try my best to be obedient, repent when I'm not being obedient, and keep moving. And with that being my mindset, this is where we're at now. And just to see, the vision that he keeps giving as we keep going. So
yeah. And I love the way that God uses you. I love the way that he speaks to you, because a lot of your a lot I know in the beginning was through your journaling, and how he would just speak to you as you wrote. And it would be so beautiful to see how the treasures, I could see the treasures being unlocked on the inside of you. And so, I mean, your journey is amazing. It's encouraging. I want other young women who are listening to this today to know that don't give up. Do not stop. Whatever it is that you feel like you need to get off of you, try therapy. Whoever you decide to go to, make sure that they're one who are being led literally by the Holy Spirit, because it's very important, especially when you're trying to discover who you are in God. Because
Mhm.
without knowing who you are in God, you're like aimlessly walking
Yeah.
and doing things, and you don't really have a target. Tiana took the steps that she needed to, and she actually put in the work. She wasn't one, you cannot, I always tell people, don't come to therapy and think that you're not going to have to work. You literally have to work,
Yeah.
because my job is not to work, to do your work. My job is to help you get to give you the work, and you are to literally put in the work.
Mhm.
And so that's what I love about you. You were easy. I, every time you would come every Tuesday, it was more, it just gave me joy, because I knew that you were going to come in telling me something that the Lord had
Yeah.
done or said, or I could see the literal elevation that God had done in you and that he is still doing in you. You have incorporated Bible study in with the ministry now.
Yeah.
So tell the people about the Bible study. And then I want you to tell them how they can find you. We're going to have links and things of that nature up, but I want you to tell people how they can find you, about the Bible study, and
Okay. Yeah, so recently, like the Lord laid laid on my heart, like to start Bible study. Even as when I was growing up, my previous pastor, like we would have Bible study on like Tuesdays. And I think I was maybe in like middle school, intermediate school or so. And we would show up, it was like we were having Bible study, but we was having real life conversations at the same time. So yeah, he was like, start implementing Bible study, and he had laid someone on my heart. And before I executed, I was like, well, God, you're gonna have to confirm it first. And he confirmed. And the girl he laid on my heart was somebody who was close to me, and I knew like she would be an awesome person to teach Bible study. So her name is Tiana Brown. She teaches Bible study every first and third Tuesday of the month. No, every first and third Monday of the month, at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. So she and the I wanted to have, I didn't want it to be an aimless Bible study. Like I wanted it to be very intentional. So I was like, well, why not, if it's like a space for girls, why not allow it to be, they're learning about different women in the Bible. Because I know as I've, continue to read the Bible more and just learning like how resilient some of these women are, how, they were at a place where they felt like weren't going to make it, or they felt like there weren't going to be any, new life or new zeal to what they were doing. God literally would come and they would have such an encounter that, that the limitations would be lifted, the strongholds would be lifted, and they were able to walk in who God had called them to be. So I was like, well, why not just, have Bible study to talk about that, where they're learning about different women in the Bible and being able to apply whatever life situation that they're going through, and seeing how God has, brought life to these women in the Bible, and see how, like, if we surrender, if we get into a place where we have relationship with God, where we get into a place where we learn God and learn the relationship that we can have with him, like we can take this cap off of who we assume that he's supposed to be. And I think for us as women, it helps us to learn. I think women go through a lot with men, and it helps us to see that like there is a love that we can experience that's outside of what love has looked like in the real world. And I think that helps us as women, and especially as young girls, they go through a lot of different things, if their father isn't there or different things like that, it helps them to see, I think, like there is a love that they can experience even as a young age on a fatherly level, that they may need and not have in the physical realm.
mhm.
So yeah, that's every first and third Monday of each month at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, 6:30 to 8. And then you asked something else too, I forgot.
Your tell us about how they can find you, your website address, and
Oh, yeah. So our website is girltalkministry.org. Oh God, let me see. Let me see what our social media handles. I forget. Let me pull it up for you.
then while you're doing that, also tell the people about how are you taking new girls and how they can sign them up.
Yeah, so we are always taking new girls. If you go to our website, Girl Talk Ministry, and go to services tab, it'll have, no, actually, if you go to the what's new tab and you scroll all the way to the bottom, it'll be a flyer there that says Girl Talk Ministry Year 2, digital via Zoom or something like that. And it'll say click here. Off to the right hand side, it'll say click here, and the word here, I think, is in bold, because that will be what you actually click. And from there, it's a registration link. So let's say if your child is in the 7th grade, so the 7th graders I see on the 2nd week of each month. So after I see the 5th through 6th grade on the 1st week of the month, that next day the link will be up for the 7th through 8th grade. So after each previous grade group goes, then the next day the link will be up and available for the following week for the next girls. So our Instagram is _Girl Talk Ministry. Our Facebook page is Girl Talk Ministry, and our TikTok is Girl Talk Ministry 01. And website again is girltalkministry.org.
So you heard it. So look, if you had a young girl, and you're doing a mentorship program too, correct?
Yes, and I also even forgot to mention, so it's a safe space. The overall mission of this is a safe space for girls ages 10 to 18 to just come and be vulnerable. We've created a space that is very trusting and safe for them to be able to express themselves. And it's a lot of things on the back end, filling out questionnaires to say like, hey, I understand what this space is. I understand like this isn't a space for me to come and take everybody's, what they're going through personally and go back and tell it like, no, this is a space for them to come and be able to talk about things that they don't always have the space to talk about. Because I know for girls, sometimes, it's hard to talk to your mom about different things because you want your mom to see you in this light, and to think that you don't make any mistakes. But sometimes we need that guidance along the way to just, we need guidance, and sometimes you need different perspectives before we go out and make decisions. But yes, we are in preparation for a mentorship program in hopes that we will start it in the summertime of this year. So maybe in like June, preparing it to kick off in maybe June, up until maybe the first week or so of August, maybe before they go back to school. But there's some things in the works with that. And if you feel like you would be someone who would be interested in being a mentorship and have some experience working with girls who may be at risk, I definitely recommend that you fill out the application as well. And it's also on the What's New tab on our website. And it will be under the mentorship program picture, and it'll say click here for the application as well.
All right, so you heard it here. Look, I know somebody that is listening today have gotten something out of it. And some of you who are listening have been one of those girls who have just needed an outlet, a place to be able to go to. And so you understand. And so it should be pulling at your heart right now. And you have the skills, you have the talent to volunteer and be a mentor to one of those girls. Be something to somebody that would be to somebody what wasn't to you. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, that's so true.
But let's do that, because God, you did not go through what you went through for nothing. God wants to take every piece of your life and use it for him to get the glory. And so again, I thank you, Tiana, for joining us. Thank you for your transparency.
Thank you.
Like I said, I'm so godly proud of you. I am. I always tell people there, even though we have this relationship, I always tell people, oh, my spiritual daughter, my spiritual daughter, my spiritual daughter. And so they're like, what? But I'm just excited about what God is doing for you in your life. And I'm excited and grateful that I get to come along for the journey, because at the end of it, I'm going to be old one day. Not no time soon, but I can look back and say, wow, look what the Lord has done. Amen.
Yes.
And so again, thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Healing Place podcast. Please take the time to share. If you haven't done so already and you're looking on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on Facebook, like. If you're listening to iTunes, please share this broadcast with your family and your friends, and let us know that you have enjoyed us by leaving us a comment. And until next time, we are praying for you.